Why are you not a Christian?
Because I see no evidence whatever for any of the Christian dogmas. I've examined all the stock arguments in favor of the existence of God, and none of them seem to me to be logically valid.
Do you think there's a practical reason for having a religious belief for many people?
Well, there can't be a practical reason for believing what isn't true. That's quite, at least I rule it out as impossible. Either the thing is true or it isn't. If it is true, you should believe it, and if it isn't, you shouldn't. And if you can't find out whether it's true or whether it isn't, you should suspend judgment. But you can't, it seems to me, a fundamental dishonesty and a fundamental treachery to intellectual integrity to hold a belief because you think it's useful and not because you think it's true.
What's in the news, Robin? There you go.
Stephen Hawking,
right,
who I guess is pretty much regarded as the smartest human being alive today, says there is no heaven. So let's be done with that.
You know, I happen to always have believed that there isn't one. You know, I always thought it was a big fairy tale, but here you go.
Well,
he really pissed all over any little hope I had.
That's
so
right.
Stephen Hawking says he knows that there's no heaven.
He says, look, here's the deal.
Go ahead.
He regards the brain as a computer which will stop working when its components fail. There is no heaven or afterlife for broken down computers. This is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark.
Right.
Well, the way I look at it, I think the church is about 200 and some years in arrears in their taxes. They should have been taxing the church all along, because when an organization, which basically is a business, as all these churches and cults and everything are in the United States, they set themselves up and they take money from people, promising them some sort of mental relief or a piece of heaven or whatever the deal is that they're offering, but basically they're taking money from people. And although they promise to send it overseas to have these little missions that they're going to save heathens from themselves and so forth, what they do is they buy real estate. They buy vast quantities of real estate, and they don't pay any taxes on it. And they've got all this stuff that should be taxed. And I'm mad about that.
If you could have a number of guests around your ultimate dinner table, living or dead.
Well, one would have to be Darwin. Maybe Jesus, to find out what really happened. I'm hostile to religion because it teaches people to be satisfied with non-explanations or poor explanations or outdated explanations for things. And that's been one of my motivations all my career, really. As a scientist, I care passionately about the wonderful opportunity that we all have to really understand the world, the universe, life, humanity, where we come from, what it all means. At least part of what religion has always been about is providing answers to those questions. Science provides what I believe to be a closer approximation to the correct answers. And so science is our best shot at understanding things.
Ask yourselves, what is wrong with spending eternity in hell? Well, I'm told it's rather hot there, for one. Dr. Craig is not offering an alternative view of morality. Okay, the whole point of Christianity, or so it is imagined, is to safeguard the eternal well-being of human souls. Now, happily, there's absolutely no evidence that the Christian hell exists. Okay, I think we should look at the consequences of believing in this framework, this theistic framework, in this world, and what these moral underpinnings actually would be. All right. 9 million children die every year before they reach the age of 5. Okay, picture an Asian tsunami of the sort we saw in 2004 that killed 250,000 people. One of those every 10 days, killing children only under 5. Okay, it's 24,000 children a day, 1,000 an hour, 17 or so a minute. That means before I can get to the end of this sentence, some few children, very likely, will have died in terror and agony. Think of the parents of these children. Think of the fact that most of these men and women believe in God and are praying at this moment for their children to be spared. And their prayers will not be answered.
And I love how when people watch, I don't know, with David Attenborough or the Discovery Planet type thing, you know, where you see the absolute phenomenal majesty and complexity and bewildering beauty of nature, and you stare at it, and somebody next to you goes, and how can you say there's no God? Look at that. And then 5 minutes later, you're looking at the life cycle of a parasitic worm whose job is to bury itself in the eyeball of a little lamb and eat the eyeball from inside while the lamb dies in horrible agony. And then you turn to them and say, yeah, where is your God now? You know? I mean, you can't just say there's a God because the world is beautiful. You have to account for bone cancer in children. You have to account for the fact that almost all animals in the wild live under stress with not enough to eat and will die violent and bloody deaths. There is not any way that you can just choose the nice bits and say that means there is a God and ignore the true fact of what nature is. The wonder of nature must be taken in its totality. And it is a wonderful thing. It is absolutely marvelous. And the idea that an atheist or a humanist, if you want to put it that way, doesn't marvel and wonder at reality, at the way things are, is nonsensical. The point is we wonder all the way. We don't just stop and say, that which I cannot understand I will call God, which is what mankind has done historically. That's to say, God was absolutely everything 1,000 or 2,000 years ago because we understood almost nothing about the natural world. So it could all be God.
I think church has very little to do with spirituality. I think it's something you have to find in yourself. It's about expressing your deepest fears and your emotions and putting it in something. It's not about living in fear and praying and hoping you're not going to go to hell. That's not very spiritual to me. Usually people hate what they're afraid of. It's the classic story. I think that even kind of goes back to Jesus, you know. They were afraid and didn't understand him, so they killed him. And I think the same thing kind of exists in music. You know, maybe I should just become a Christian and make them all happy. But I think if I found Jesus, which I didn't know he was lost in the first place, if I did, I don't think he would probably be that much different than me, you know. He's a long-haired guy that likes to, you know, dress sexy. A lot of chicks were into him.
And you are an atheist?
I am, yeah.
And what do you think of the fact that it seems to be a movement that's gaining credibility as of late?
I think it's about fucking time.
People do seem to be coming out of the closet about that in a way they didn't before my movie came out.
Yeah, well, you know, hopefully that had something to do with it. But, you know, I think you also...
I just think it is in general a movie. I mean, it's books, it's movies, it's just about time.
Well, you saw people who have had 8 years of basically being told nothing other than love Jesus and you'll be fine, you know, 9/11 and Jesus. And I think they're finally starting to come out of that and realizing, wait a minute, maybe if he's wrong about this, maybe this is in fact fundamentally wrong. I think there's still a long way to go. I think it's overly optimistic to think that it's gaining popularity with any kind of speed But
well, it was on the front page of the New York Times this week. In a number of places around the country that you might not think it would be happening, when they put up a billboard that says, "Atheists, please call." You know, there was no complaints. There was just people saying, "Hey, I want to join."
Yeah, in 200 years, I think maybe we'll be there.
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And you're also, I understand, a big champion of gay rights.
Yep.
Not for any personal reasons.
No. Look, listen,
you're not a gay man.
I like a good-ass fuck as much as the next guy, but I'm not gay. That makes me gay? Come on. The 21st century. No, I am...
Hey, this is not Fox television. We have standards here.
Yeah. I am...
Now, Professor Hawking, in the very last paragraph of your book, you say that if we discover a complete theory of the universe, then it should in time be understandable in broad principle to everyone and not just to a few scientists. And when that happens, all of us will be able to start discussing the why rather than the how. And I quote, "If we find the answer to that, it would be the ultimate triumph of human reason, for then we would know the mind of God." Do you think that God can intervene in the universe as he wants, or is God too bound by the laws of science?
The question of whether God is bound by the laws of science is a bit like the question, can God make a stone that is so heavy that he cannot lift it? I don't think it is very useful to speculate on what God might or might not be able to do. Rather, we should examine what he actually does with the universe we live in. All our observations suggest that it operates according to well-defined laws. These laws may have been ordained by God, but it seems that he does not intervene in the universe to break the laws, at least not once he had set the universe going.